I still remember the man I married. He used to leave little notes on the kitchen counter before he left for work. Nothing profound, just small things. Your coffee has on the warmer. You looked beautiful sleeping. Don't forget to eat. I used to tease him about it, tell him he was being silly, that we were grown adults and not teenagers passing notes in class. He would just smile and shrug and say, "I know, I just like reminding you that I'm thinking of you." That was Daniel, my Daniel, the man I stood in front of God and our families and promised forever to, the man who cried at our wedding, not at the altar, but later, during our first dance, with his lips pressed close to my ear, whispering that he couldn't believe someone like me had chosen someone like him. I didn't know then that one day I would look at that same man and not recognize a single thing behind his eyes. It started with the money. Not the having of it. We had always been comfortable enough, careful with what we had, grateful for what we built together. It started the moment his company was acquired. The morning his phone rang, and a number with too many digits appeared on the screen, and everything changed in the span of a single conversation. I watched it happen in real time. I watched my husband walk into the kitchen as one man, and walk back out as something else entirely. He was smiling, yes, laughing even, but there was something behind the smile I had never seen before, a distance, like a door had opened inside him that led somewhere I hadn't been invited. "We're rich, baby," he said. "I mean really, truly rich." And I smiled because he was smiling, and because I loved him, and because I had no way of knowing that those 4 words would be the beginning of the end of everything we had built. At first, the changes were small enough to explain away. He started wearing different clothes, tailored suits where there used to be worn jeans and old sweaters. He traded in his car for something that turned heads on the highway. He joined a private club and started spending weekends with men whose names I recognized from business magazines, men who laughed too loud and talked about money the way most people talk about the weather, casually, constantly, without thinking. I told myself it was just adjustment, that anyone would need time to settle into a new life, that the Daniel I knew was still in there, just finding his footing. But the note stopped. It was such a small thing, such a quiet disappearance, but I noticed it the way you notice a sound that has been part of your home for years suddenly going silent. I would come downstairs in the morning, and the counter would be clean and bare, and the coffee would be cold, and Daniel would already be on the phone, already somewhere else in his mind, already gone before he had even left the house. I told myself not to make it mean something. People get busy, lives expand. I was being sentimental. But then he stopped coming home for dinner. Then he stopped asking about my day. Then I realized, somewhere around the 8-month mark, that we had not had a real conversation, the kind where you look at each other and actually land, in longer than I could remember. The man who replaced my husband was handsome in the same body, but everything warm had been carved out of him and replaced with something harder and colder, and far more interested in being impressive than being known. He spoke differently. Not to me, he barely spoke to me at all anymore, but to the world, to his new friends, his business partners, the people who now filled his calendar and his evenings, and every corner of his attention that used to belong to us. He spoke with an authority that bordered on contempt, as if the accumulation of wealth had also somehow been an accumulation of the right to look down. I watched him dismiss a waiter once with a wave of his hand so slight, so casual in its cruelty, that I had to look away. That was not the man who used to overtip, because, as he always said, you never know what kind of day someone is having. I brought it up that night, quietly, carefully, the way you learn to raise things with a person who has become unpredictable. He looked at me for a long moment, and then said, with a patience that was somehow worse than anger, "You just don't understand this world yet." Yet, as if I were a child who would catch up eventually. I lay awake for a long time that night, in the dark, on my side of a bed that had never felt so wide. The loneliness of a broken marriage is a particular kind of loneliness. It is not the loneliness of being alone. That at least has a clean shape to it, a logic you can follow. This loneliness lives inside company. It sits across from you at dinner. It sleeps beside you. It wears the face of someone you love and says nothing, offers nothing, sees nothing when it looks at you. I tried everything I knew how to try. I planned a weekend away, just the 2 of us, somewhere quiet with no phones and no meetings, and no performance of success. He cancelled the morning we were supposed to leave, casually, like cancelling a dentist appointment. Something came up, you understand. I suggested counselling. He laughed, not unkindly but dismissively, which was almost worse. We don't need a stranger telling us how to be married, he said. We're fine. We were not fine. I began to grieve him while he was still standing in the same house as me, and there is nothing quite so strange, nothing quite so quietly devastating, as mourning someone who is still alive, still eating your food, still breathing your air, still sleeping in your bed, but gone in every way that ever mattered. The morning I finally said the word out loud was a Tuesday.
I remember because it was raining and I had been sitting at the kitchen table for a long time, long enough for my tea to go cold, just sitting with myself and the silence and the bare, clean counter where the notes used to be. Daniel came downstairs dressed for a meeting. He moved through the kitchen without looking at me, reaching past me for his keys, checking his phone. And something in me, something that had been quietly gathering itself for months, went still and certain. "I can't do this anymore," I said. He looked up, and for just a moment, one single aching moment, I saw him, the old him, the one who cried at our wedding and left notes on the counter and looked at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. He was in there, somewhere behind all that armor, behind all that wealth and distance and cold new importance. But he didn't reach for me. He just straightened his jacket, looked back at his phone, and said, "We'll talk about it when I get back." He didn't get back. Not really. Not in any way that counted.